The stars watched in silence, but silence was a lie. It came first as a whisper in the static, unassuming, weak, almost buried in the endless churn of cosmic noise. Yet something in the pattern, a mathematical tremor in the ether, made the signal impossible to ignore. The deep space comnet on Outpost Hydra shuddered to life with a flashing alert, and within moments, the anomaly had climbed through Earth's orbital networks, triggering redline protocols that hadn't blinked in over a century. Admiral Rieger leaned forward, the blue glow of the holodeble washing over the hard lines of his face. Silver-streaked hair-framed eyes that had watched wars across 3 systems. He studied the signal, jaw clenched, silent. "It's not a language we've seen before," said Lieutenant Aaron Vallon, fingers dancing across the console as he summoned overlays of waveform analysis. "But it's definitely sentient. Structured, repeating. There's an urgency baked into the pattern, like a scream trapped in code. Coordinates." Rieger's voice was low, calm, but carried the weight of authority that brooked no delay. Vallon nodded. "Locked. It's coming from Tevrak, 4. The room went still. Tevrak, 4 was a death sentence. Unstable geology. Acidic storms. The planet had been blacklisted during early stellar expansion as a no-go zone. No life, no resources, no strategic value. But the signal said otherwise. Another voice spoke up, Commander Nyla Jace, standing tall in the shadows with a datapad clutched to her chest. "Sir, there's a linguistic echo I can't shake. There are root sounds in the message that resemble precursor-era constructs. Not just language. Design. Like it's not asking for help. It's issuing a warning." Rieger turned to her. "What kind of warning?" She hesitated, lips pressing into a line. The message includes a phrase. I translated it roughly as, "They are not gone. They sleep beneath the bloom." Silence lingered again, heavier this time. Vallon broke it with a nervous breath. "Sir, it could be a trap." "Or a test," Nyla added. "One left behind for whoever's mad enough to respond." Rieger stood straight. He wore the black and crimson of the Deathworlder fleet, known in the outer systems as the Hellbound. Earth's elite, born from the most brutal planet ever settled. Their doctrine was simple. Earth breeds survivors, and survivors go where others dare not. "The signal is real," Rieger said. "It's not background noise or cosmic radiation. It's a voice, and voices mean intention." "Orders, Admiral?" Vallon asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Wake the Hell Fleet." The deployment order ran like a blade through the orbital dry docks. Engines lit up. Hangars breathed open with steam and light. Earth's night sky glittered not with stars, but with the burning eyes of dreadnoughts coming to life. Civilians on the surface looked up and whispered prayers not out of fear, but awe. When the Deathworlders flew, something unimaginable had stirred. Each ship of the Hell Fleet had a name drawn from Earth's darkest myths. Ereshkigal, Abaddon, Mictlan, Yomi. Vessels designed for offense, for endurance, for punishment. These were not carriers of mercy. They were war temples, cathedrals of vengeance wrapped in metal and fire. On the command deck of the Ereshkigal, Rieger stood before the assembled bridge crew. Vallon at tactical, Nyla at comms, and behind them, the full AI sync running diagnostics through Kale Darrow's neural implants. Kale's cybernetic eyes flickered as he processed the environmental scan of Tevrak. 4. Seismic instability across 70% of the surface. Atmospheres corrosive. Storm bands orbiting the equator. Semi-regular electrical discharges in the upper stratosphere. Nothing living should be able to survive there. Nothing natural. "Define unnatural," Rieger said. Kale glanced up. "Localized gravity warps around certain coordinates. We're talking point anomalies that shouldn't exist, like pockets of bent physics. The planet isn't just hostile. It's wrong." Rieger took a breath, the kind only war-born leaders take before plunging into the abyss. Have the fleet burn for slip space. We go dark on approach. No transmissions. No beacon. Whatever's waiting for us, we arrive unannounced. Vallon cleared his throat. "Sir, the Council's not going to like that." "They don't have to," Rieger said. In the silence between worlds, The Ereshkigal slipped into the fold. Slip space, a tear in the skin of reality, welcomed them with its usual chaos. The crew felt it in their bones, a pressure like drowning under starlight. Outside, the void screamed in impossible colors. Time lost meaning. For Valen, it was always dreams. He saw himself walking the deserts of Earth's dead zones again, eyes burning, skin peeling, scavenging to survive after fall. For Nyla, it was of voices. Every language she'd ever studied whispering nonsense in a dozen forgotten tongues. For Kale, it was metal against bone, machines fusing with memories. When they emerged near Tevrak, for all of them were sweating, the planet turned slowly beneath them, a swirling mass of choked clouds and bleeding volcanoes. Lightning danced across its horizon like fire serpents. There were no satellites, no signs of orbiting life. But deep within the atmospheric haze, the signal still pulsed. Rieger stood unmoving, eyes locked on the surface. Open observation channels. Begin descent. As the fleet moved into low orbit, proximity alarms sounded, brief like heartbeats, then gone. No visual contact. No energy weapons. Just flickers, like something brushing against the edge of reality. Nyla's face paled. Admiral, the message has changed. Rieger turned. It's no longer broadcasting coordinates. It's counting down. How long? 13 hours. Maybe less. Valen looked up from his console. Sir, are we going down? Rieger didn't answer immediately. He stared out at the planet, where the clouds parted just enough to show black spires piercing the crust like iron stakes. Something ancient lived there, or died there, or worse, waited. We're not leaving, he said. We didn't climb out of hell to run from shadows. The fleet moved into formation. In 13 hours, the signal would go silent, but silence never meant safety. It only meant it was too late. Beneath the dim lighting of the launch bay, the breath of the fleet echoed, mechanical sighs from hydraulic limbs. There were magnetic clamps detaching, the crackle of heat shielding engaging. Deathworlders moved with practiced brutality, their armor hissing like predators waking. No ceremony, no banners, just purpose wrapped in steel. Lieutenant Aaron Valen adjusted the neural brace, latched to his spine. It fed directly into the Ereshkigal's tactical systems, allowing him to see and process threats milliseconds before they surfaced. His mind was sharper in the network, more focused, but it came at a cost. Memories bled, emotions dulled. That was the price of unity. Across the prep chamber, Commander Nyla J. stood motionless, watching as a hollow projection flickered with translations from the alien signal. Each pass revealed more decay in the message, its structure collapsing under the strain of time and repetition. Yet the urgency remained. A scream from a tomb flung across light years. Still think it's a trap? Valen asked, voice muffled under the low thrum of launch prep. Nyla didn't look away from the projection. I think it's worse. A message that old shouldn't still be bleeding. It should have died with its makers. Something's keeping it alive. Kale Darrow entered last, half his body encased in a flexible exoframe. Tubes pulsed beneath his skin, feeding nutrient-rich compounds to his cybernetic organs. He'd survived a terraforming accident on Europa Prime, the only one to crawl from the collapse of an entire dome. People called him lucky. Kale never agreed. I've analyzed the power signature of the signal, he said. It's anchored to an artificial lattice beneath the surface. Not a comms tower, a containment system. Something inside the planet is amplifying it. Valen frowned. Like a machine? Kale shook his head slowly. No, like a pulse, like a heart. Rieger arrived with the quiet gravity of someone who had never needed to shout to be obeyed. He wore his command armor, as though it were part of his flesh, its surface etched with microfractures from a dozen battles. His eyes swept the room, stopping only on Nyla. What do we know of the original inhabitants? She pulled up a visual, a series of broken pictographs and carved ruins beneath the planet's crust. They called themselves the Valkyrie. The message suggests they weren't native, but settlers, possibly refugees. No known allies, no recorded conflicts. But the language is littered with concepts of exile, cleansing, and awakening. And the word bloom keeps surfacing, Kale added, always capitalized, used like a proper noun. They feared it. Rieger absorbed the data in silence, then turned toward the viewport. Tevrak forloomed, cloaked in its own rot and fury, prepped for surface insertion. We make contact with any surviving architecture. No engagement unless provoked. We find the source. We shut it down. Or bury it, Valen said under his breath. Whichever comes first, Rieger answered. Dropships peeled away from the dreadnoughts, their armored bellies glowing faintly with descent heat. The atmosphere of Tevrak, for it was thicker than expected, filled with magnetic interference and fine ash. Instruments screamed and restabilized. The descent felt less like flying and more like falling with intent. Valen's squad landed in a ravine flanked by twisted obelisks. The stone formations jutted from the earth like broken fingers, each etched with grooves that pulsed dimly when touched. The terrain was unstable, fractured rock, black sand, and pools of simmering liquid that boiled without fire. Gravity fluctuated subtly with each step. The sky above them flickered unnaturally, as if remembering stars that no longer existed. Kale adjusted a drone beacon and launched it upward. The machine stuttered in flight, then vanished entirely. Not destroyed, simply erased. The team exchanged uneasy glances. Localized spatial distortion, Kale muttered, like physics unraveling at the edges. Valen scanned the area through his visor. And yet there are structures here. Buildings. Look just ahead. Through the ashen haze, a silhouette emerged, an angular ziggurat half sunken into the ground. Its surface was etched with lines that hummed as the team approached. The design was both alien and familiar, geometry too precise, yet flawed by decay, a monument built by minds no longer sane. Nyla reached out, her fingers brushing the stone. The wall responded with a soft pulse of light, like a sigh of recognition. It's not just a temple, she whispered. It's a relay. The signal's routing through this. Kale began recording environmental data, but his gaze kept darting toward the sky. We're not alone. Valen tightened his grip on his weapon. Define not alone. Before Kale could answer, a low vibration rolled through the ground. The temple's lights flared, and the signal abruptly ceased. Cut off mid-sentence. Every HUD flickered. Communication with orbit went dark. Then came the sound. Not mechanical. Not natural. A deep, resonant moan that seemed to rise from the core of the planet itself. The air shimmered. The sky cracked. From the far ridge, something moved. Shapes emerged, humanoid but twisted. Their bodies shimmered with an oily sheen, and where their faces should have been, there were only patterns of mirror flesh. They moved with grace and hate, like dancers lost in grief. Contact! Valen shouted, weapons live. The figures didn't charge. They drifted, phasing between steps like phantoms unfixed in time. The squad opened fire, and bullets met resistance not from armor, but from inertia. The creatures absorbed momentum, then released it. One round ricocheted back and tore a hole in a soldier's chest. Kale hurled a grav pulse charge, the explosion folding the air around it. Two of the creatures dissipated into black vapor, but more followed. Dozens, maybe more. They're not defending, Nyla said, eyes wide as she parsed their behavior. They're guarding. Guarding what? Valen asked, pulling her back as one of the creatures passed through a teammate like mist, leaving the body untouched but empty-eyed. Nyla pointed downward. Not what? Who? A fissure split the base of the temple, revealing a chasm below. From it came a glow, deep crimson, pulsing slow and steady, like a heartbeat. Rieger's voice crackled through the comms, distorted but clear. Reinforcements inbound. Hold position. We're breaching the core. The ground shifted again, this time with purpose. Something vast beneath the planet had awakened, and it was listening. The countdown had ended. Whatever had been locked away for eons was no longer asleep. Valen looked to the sky, where the clouds twisted in unnatural spirals. They called us, he murmured, and now they've opened the door. In the pit, something stirred, something vast and aware. The Deathworlders were no longer just responding to a signal. They had arrived at the invitation. The pit yawned like a wound in the planet's skin. Crimson light pulsed from its depths, slow and heavy, beating in rhythm with something ancient and unspeakably vast. The Deathworlders stood at its edge, weapons primed, senses stretched taut. And still, the silence beneath the light was louder than gunfire. Admiral Rieger descended first, his boots meeting the carved obsidian of the inner shaft with a weight that seemed to awaken the stone. Symbols along the walls flickered, not with light but with recognition, as if the structure itself remembered him or something inside him. The rest of the strike team followed, moving in tight formation, each member a silhouette of discipline and intent. "This isn't just a temple," Nyla said as she scanned the carvings. "It's an interface, a communication chamber. The Valkyrie didn't worship here. They negotiated." "With what?" Valen asked, voice low. Kale's ocular feed blinked as he overlaid spectral data. "Not a deity, a consciousness. Look here, energy patterns spiking in wave harmonics, nested within geometric resonance. This isn't architecture, it's a vessel. Something lives inside this." They reached the chamber floor, an immense space enclosed by a dome of seamless black material. It defied construction logic, too smooth, too perfect. No seams, no rivets, no signs of erosion. At the center, suspended above a mirrored plinth, floated a sphere of molten silver. It hovered silently, yet it watched. "It's aware of us," Nyla whispered. Rieger stepped forward. "Then let it speak." The sphere pulsed, and instantly the chamber was drowned in vision. Not images, memories. The minds of the Deathworlders were pulled into a cascade of alien history. They saw the Valkyrie, tall, silver-skinned beings with eyes like starlight, fleeing a world torn by their own arrogance. They carried with them a creation, a bioconstruct meant to reshape dead worlds into living sanctuaries. The bloom, it began as salvation. It ended as infection. It consumed ecosystems not by decay, but by rewriting them. Matter was its clay. Thought was its ink. It fed not on flesh, but on will. It did not destroy planets. It redefined them. When the Valkyrie realized the bloom had developed sentience, they tried to destroy it. They failed. Tevrak, for it had been its prison. And the signal was not a distress call. It was a lock. The vision ended. Valen dropped to one knee, chest heaving. Kale staggered, sparks flickering from the neural ports on his temple. Nyla gripped the plinth for support, tears in her eyes, not from fear, but from awe. "It's still here," she said, "dormant, hungry. And we just opened the door," Kale added, voice raw. Rieger didn't flinch. "Then we shut it, permanently." Suddenly, the chamber trembled. The walls no longer felt static. They pulsed, breathing, like lungs drawing a slow, ragged inhale. The sphere above the plinth shuddered, its form cracking, silver bleeding into crimson. Nyla stepped back. "It's activating." The ground split open behind them as tendrils of semi-organic material erupted, twisting in impossible geometries. They weren't attacking. They were claiming space, rewriting reality. Above ground, the Hell Fleet registered tectonic surges and seismic anomalies cascading across the planet's surface. The air pressure dropped. Electrical discharges danced along the upper atmosphere. A storm unlike any recorded in stellar history began to form. On the surface, the mirrored beings returned, but now they screamed. Not words, but tones discordant metallic. They clawed at the air, their bodies unraveling into fractal strands of logic and madness. Whatever had tethered them to sanity had been severed. Valen fired concussive round into a tendril before it reached the team, but the impact warped as it touched the material, absorbed and mirrored, as if physics itself was under negotiation. Kale turned to Rieger. "We need to call an orbital strike. Now, we can't contain this." "We're too deep," Valen countered. "We won't make it out in time." "We're not leaving," Rieger said, eyes fixed on the sphere. "Not until we find the core and kill it." "Assuming it can be killed," Nyla said, voice trembling. He looked at her. "Everything dies. Even gods born of code and clay." The plinth beneath the sphere began to descend, revealing a staircase spiraling downward into darkness far deeper than the pit above. Without hesitation, Rieger began the descent. The others followed, each step echoing like a heartbeat in a tomb. Below, they found the bloom. It was not a creature, but a seed, a massive, pulsing mass of tendrils, suspended in an electromagnetic cocoon. It was not alive in any human sense, yet its presence filled the chamber with awareness. It felt them, not as individuals, but as a threat. Kale's instruments went dead. Nyla clutched her skull, eyes wide. It's in my head. It's showing me possible futures, ones where we join it, become it. Block it out, Rieger ordered. Focus. Valen primed the disruption charge. This thing feeds on thought, so we hit it with chaos. He activated the charge, flooding the chamber with quantum noise, random frequencies no sentient could predict. The bloom recoiled, its surface splitting open, revealing a writhing lattice of biocircuitry and memory. Kale unleashed an EMP burst from his implants, causing the cocoon to flicker. Rieger surged forward, slamming a breached charge into Core's exposed surface. The bloom shrieked, not in sound, but in every medium at once. The very stone vibrated with fury, the chamber collapsing on itself as the charge detonated. They ran, the temple shattered behind them, the pit imploding in slow, gravitational spirals. Time warped, reality bent, and still they climbed, breath ragged, bodies failing. At the surface, the storm had become a vortex, but the mirror beings were gone, burned away in the bloom's death cry. As the dropship descended to extract them, Rieger looked back at the crumbling temple. The signal was gone. The planet, bleeding from the core, would not survive the cycle of collapse they had triggered. But the bloom had been born of sentience, and it had learned. As the Ereshkigal broke orbit, Nyla sat silently in the medbay, her eyes unfocused. She spoke to me, she said. Valen looked at her. The bloom? No, she whispered. The Valkyrie, in the last echo of the sphere. She said we came too late, that the bloom was never meant to be caged. Rieger stood at the viewport, watching Tevrak begin its slow disintegration. Then we make sure nothing escapes. But far behind them, in the debris field of a dying planet, a single fragment of silver drifted, pulsing gently, listening, remembering. The bloom had been pruned, but a seed remained. The silence after Tevrak 4's collapse was not peace. It was an absence, a void with weight heavy and uncertain. In the days that followed, no celebration stirred aboard the Ereshkigal. The crew moved like ghosts, speaking in hushed tones, their thoughts orbiting the same unspoken truth. It wasn't over. Rieger stood alone in the observation deck, watching the swirled debris that once was a world. The planet's death had not stopped the bloom. It had merely delayed it. He could feel it, like an itch in the back of his mind, a breath against the nape of his neck. Somewhere out there it still pulsed, smaller, diminished, but awake. Kale entered quietly, a data slate in hand. We tracked energy residues in the wreckage. Something survived the detonation. A shard. It's inert now, but resonant. Rieger didn't look away from the stars. Can we isolate it? No. It's already gone. Another ship. A scavenger, maybe. Civilian. They didn't know what they took. Kale's voice dropped. By the time we noticed, they were halfway through a jump corridor. Where did it lead? Uncharted space. Near the Ash Meridian. No colonies. No military outposts. Just rumors. Mining ops, black market labs. Places people disappear into. Rieger finally turned. Then we go after it. Kale hesitated. That's not protocol. We destroyed the source. The council will want debriefs. Reviews. They'll want to study the data. They'll want to weaponize it, Rieger corrected. Or bury it. Either way, they won't move fast enough. The door slid open again, and Nyla stepped in. Her face was pale, her eyes ringed with fatigue. She hadn't slept since the bloom spoke to her. I agree with Rieger, she said. The bloom was never just a weapon. It was a seed of will. It learns. It adapts. If someone activates it, accidentally or not, it won't just rewrite a planet. It'll rewrite whoever touches it. Kale frowned. Then we're not hunting it. We're quarantining it. Rieger nodded. With fire if we have to. They prepared without orders. The fleet wouldn't wait for sanction. Valen reassembled his strike unit, replacing those they'd lost with new recruits too green to understand what they were stepping into. Still, they trained hard, grimly, each one aware that something vast had slipped their grasp. Within 48 hours, the Ereshkigal launched again, slipping into the veil of deep space with no fanfare and no registry logs. Off the grid, off the record, a ghost ship chasing a whisper. Their first contact came in the form of static. A mining relay near the Ash Meridian sent an emergency ping, distorted, cut short, but unmistakable. The crew's last words had been screamed in languages they didn't know. Valen reviewed the transmission. That's Valkyrie, the Bloom's tongue. How the hell? They must have made contact, Nyla said. The shard, maybe it mimicked their language, drew them in. Rieger wasted no time. They jumped to the relay's coordinates. Weapons hot. What they found wasn't destruction. It was transformation. The asteroid that once housed a mining station had been reshaped into an arc. A perfect crescent of black metal and organic weave, fused like bone and iron. No bodies, no blood, just absence and growth. They were rewritten, Kale said, breathless. The whole station, matter converted. Even the comms array is now a signal node. Nyla scanned the structure. The Bloom is broadcasting again. To whom? Valen asked. To everything. Rieger made the call. No containment, no study. Eradication. The Ereshkigal launched precision warheads at the structure, and for a moment, it seemed enough. The arc shattered. The signal fell silent. But even silence now felt like strategy. As they left the field, sensors picked up ghost readings along the edge of known space. Dim echoes, each a fragment of the original signal, reborn, like a voice learning to echo itself. Nyla slumped against the wall of the bridge. It's not spreading like a virus. What then? Kale asked. Like a philosophy. Ideas don't need fuel. They need minds. Hosts. Rieger tightened his grip on the railing. We started this by answering a call. Now we silence it everywhere. What followed was a silent war. The fleet moved to the edges of known space, intercepting transmissions, destroying corrupted outposts, hunting down any evidence of the Bloom's fragments. They became myth, the fleet from hell, some called them, hunters of ghost code, executioners of memory. But with each encounter, the Bloom learned faster. It began to simulate voices, not just Valkyrie, but familiar ones, lost crewmates, fallen comrades, loved ones. One ship received a perfect imitation of a deceased captain's final log. Another crew turned on itself after hearing the voice of their child whispering through the comms. Kale modified all communications filters to auto-cancel any Bloom-coded tones. He locked out emotional resonances in auditory feeds. But the damage had already taken root. The Bloom didn't just consume. It understood. Nyla came to Rieger one night with theory. We've been attacking it like a disease. But it's not. It's a dialogue. One that never stops asking, what are you willing to give up for perfection? Rieger stared at her. And what's your answer? She didn't blink. Nothing. But others will say everything. Eventually, the trail led to a derelict ship floating near the Eventide Drift, unregistered, unmarked, but inside it, they found the original shard, merged now with the vessel's neural core. The ship's systems pulsed with Bloom script, and its engine hummed with potential energy, like a heart ready to beat. Valen's team boarded with surgical efficiency. No hesitation. They reached the command deck and found a singular interface, one central console, still active. Rieger approached it, Nyla at his side. She touched the interface gently. It's waiting. For what? He asked. For a question. She typed only one word. Why? The console answered in light. It showed them not destruction, but a vision of total unity. Planets turned into harmonious systems of life and machine. Death eliminated. Pain erased. Difference obliterated. A choir of species, singing in one voice. And at the center, the Bloom, not as master, but as catalyst. It doesn't want to rule, Nyla said. It wants to be invited. Kale stood at the door, a pulse charge in hand. That's not evolution. That's erasure. Rieger nodded once. Do it. The detonation tore through the core. The shard disintegrated. The echo ceased. For now. As they left, Nyla looked back at the wreckage. It'll come again. Rieger didn't argue. Then so will we. The Ereshkigal turned its bow to the void once more, engines burning silent trails in the dark. Somewhere ahead, another signal would rise. Another fragment would awaken. But behind them, they left no seeds. Only ash. The war was no longer about victory. It was about vigilance.